You're listening to Crazy Shit in Real Estate. You'll be amazed at all these wild but true situations that others have found themselves in. Because on this show, you'll hear uncensored, unbelievable stories from the world of real estate. I'm Leigh Brown. Let's dive right in.
I'm Leigh Brown, and this is your favorite real estate podcast. Today, we are so excited to bring back to you a special episode featuring John Bell, the Deputy Director of the Veterans Affairs Home Loans Program, affectionately known in real estate as the VA. We're going to talk a little bit about the resources available to those impacted by Hurricane Helene and, of course, other natural disasters. And we'll talk about what's changing in insurance. And we'll talk about what's changing in structured real estate when it comes to compensation for buyer's agents. Truly, we're going to talk about a lot of it. So please get your notebook and pencil ready, and I'll see you on the other side. Thank you so much for joining me again.
Thank you so much for having me again. Are you kidding me? I look forward to this every time.
I'm sure you do, because you never know what you're going to get asked. We're going to start today with a very important timely topic, and then we'll dig into the questions that agents and consumers have about the ongoing excitement in real estate. But obviously, I'm in North Carolina, and I have been spending the last 30 days doing relief around Hurricane Helene. And now that we are 30 days into the cycle, we've lost, the estimate as of last night is somewhere around 900 homes that will not be recoverable. Trying to process this in terms of mortgage world, where you're due on the 1st, late on the 15th. What are the VA policies for anybody that's in the impacted area that's carrying a VA loan? Maybe they haven't heard from their servicer yet, or they've ignored their servicer. We know people don't always read the communications. What are the existing policies that will give people some guidance, maybe some relief as they figure out what the next steps are? Because obviously it's so traumatic when anything goes sideways, but much less your entire house vanishing in an unprecedented disaster event.
Well, Leigh, first and foremost, before I answer that, because I certainly will answer that important question, I wanted to thank you, because I've certainly been following all of the work that you've been doing and the community have been doing, and just trying to help as many people as they can and getting the resources and supplies that is needed to be able to survive. And it's such an unfortunate circumstance anytime you have anything like this happen in a community. And from a VA perspective, I had to look at this in a 6-state community. We have a disaster, I hate to call it a disaster recovery program, but it's definitely a disaster program that every time a disaster happens in a certain area, we do a couple of things automatically. First and foremost, we ask for our servicers to put in place a forbearance request program where those individuals that are in the affected areas, that they're able to have a forbearance on their property. We also have a moratorium on foreclosures. So there should not be foreclosures in that particular area. Late charge waiver, we waive any late charges for the program. Credit and VA reporting, we ask for servicers not to report credit type issues in those areas, as well as we try to get servicers to extend special forbearances for our National Guard and reserve members in those areas as well. We certainly do not want to forget all of the work and sacrifices that they're making to try to get as much help as possible. All of that can be found on our website at www.va.gov/resources/disaster help. And we'll get that information so you can post it online like you always do. And so don't worry about memorizing it or anything like that right now. Just go to Leigh's website and all that information will be posted, as she's always so kind to do for us. So we want to make sure that everyone that can take advantage of that is able to take advantage of it in this really difficult time. So we have the same issues that everyone else has, and sometimes it's about getting out to the property, getting our realtors that help give us information in those affected areas on what type of properties are out there, what type of shape that they're in, so that we can provide some type of resources available. We have two different programs. We have one and a program where FEMA has to actually ask us if they need properties, where where we find ways to help as much as we can. So FEMA actually initiates that. And then we also have a VA where, for those individuals that are in those areas that are VA employees, where they're actually so that they can continue to help and provide support in the areas that they need to. I will say this is one of those times where we have an inventory that was already reduced because of all of the work that we've been doing and having forbearances and moratoriums on foreclosures already. So that's in regards to trying to get our VASP program really up and going. And VASP is a VA servicing purchase program that's the last resort option for our veterans. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into this. But that's what we've been doing. We've got a lot of work to still be done. And any type of questions or answers that I can supply, I certainly am prepared to do.
Did not know that you guys would help the National Guard members that have come in from other states to support after Helene. So that is fantastic to find out. And yes, friends, the link is going to be in the show notes for this episode and also in all of our materials, so you can find the information easily. So I have a couple of follow-up questions. The first one is, if a homeowner has a VA loan and their servicer is not responsive to them and doesn't seem to be following the guidelines, is there a reporting mechanism so that they could let you know that you have a servicer not behaving? And I know this is probably a very rare occurrence, but just in case.
So it's a great question. We're one of the few programs out there that actually have our most experienced loan techs that actually answer the call to try to help borrowers that are facing difficulty. And so you can always call us. You can get to us online by just submitting we have what's called a Service Now ticket program, where they can submit a ticket online and someone will get back to them if they do not want to if they don't want to call us. I will say we're answering calls in less than a minute, and happy and continue to do so. We're right there at a moment's notice for them, as well as the servicer, right? And the servicer accountability through that. Most of our VE servicers are wanting to help. They're wanting to find ways to help them through this process. Give them a shot, give them a chance. But again, they can always contact VA if that doesn't.
Yeah, I know you always get Service Now tickets after you show up over here on the show, so I'm glad you're still willing to tell people about that resource. But you have been able to answer your whole department has answered some oddball questions that have come in from around the country. So we're very grateful to know there's a way for veterans to get answers. And a lot of times, y'all, you have resources, you just aren't paying attention to where they're located. So we're glad you're here to pay attention to your resources. Okay, so here's the difficult question. We've lost a lot of homes in North Carolina. And when I say we've lost homes, yesterday I've been running supply loads regularly. My team has. I'm primarily the dot connector, but I've done some of the transport myself. Talked to a lady yesterday. Of course, we're recording this at the end of October 2024. And her house washed away, as in so gone that the footings were gone. So we know when you build a house, you pour the concrete footings, then you build the foundation, then you build the house. All of it gone, most of her lot gone as well. And her question is, what happens with the mortgage? And if you look at the general information that's out there, it's that there are loans available to help somebody rebuild whatever. So for her, that would be doubling her debt load. Is there any guidance or guidelines or conversation inside the VA, and I know you don't answer this, but inside FHA, USDA, any other government-backed programs, what do we do for somebody who had a debt on collateral that's gone, on a lot that has been reshaped and can't be rebuilt on? We know that what we're facing in North Carolina and also in the upstate of South Carolina primarily is it's unprecedented in the way our geography has changed. what happens to the debt, John? Are people going to be having to go bankruptcy to get rid of this debt so they can move on one day?
It's one of those things where it's hard to answer on a general basis because there are certainly some options that are available to them depending upon where they live, whether or not there's insurance involved at all, whether or not there is any state-run programs, county programs. What we try to do is if it's just a matter of trying to get a veteran to be able to utilize their benefit, they certainly can use their benefit more than once and still be eligible and maybe have some remaining entitlement. We may want to talk to them about the existing entitlement and what would happen and where that is in the process of what's left. And those kind of things. I think to answer your question directly, there's a couple of different options for them. One is I would call VA, I would call their servicer, I would research with their realtor, with their state websites, their county websites, on any particular programs that are out there to help on the purchase of new properties or even disaster area type programs available, because they're just different on where they are. Are there specific conversations that are happening on a federal level at this point in time? I would say everything is on the table at this point in time from what we would do moving forward. Nothing concrete, nothing that I can really talk about at this point in time. But I will tell you, there's not a day that goes by that we're having some type of discussion about a disaster level from an administration, from a federal agency standpoint, as well as what do we do from an insurance standpoint, bigger and more than just in the disaster area. But insurance is a huge issue nationwide at this point in time, where we've got borrowers that are facing 35% raises in their insurance monthly payments. Taxes are going up in some places by 35%. What happens when your taxes and insurance exceed what your principal and interest are? So all of those type of discussions we are in the process of having. Nothing concrete as far as programs or anything like that I can talk of yet, but I will say that we're aware. We are certainly trying to determine where we can insert ourselves, where we can't, what we have the authority to and what we don't have the authority to, and then how would we get authority if we needed it. Hopefully that answers.
Basically, it's going to be a case-by-case basis, and we know that when you have a geography like the mountain areas, you have flat areas, you have hollers, you got mountaintops, and they're all so different geographically that it does become a case-by-case basis. So if you're watching or listening to this and you have yourself, friends, family impacted, most important thing I want you to take away from that is get on the phone now with your servicer, with your mortgage company, with whoever sends you a statement, and just let them know what has occurred in your specific situation. And then if they don't have a program right now, since it is an evolving situation, at least you have started the conversation and you've got notes in your file. So don't be afraid to reach out. It's important to start the conversation sooner rather than later, which leads me to the second half of that. So let's say that I talked to someone whose house was impacted and they've got a VA loan. They maybe have to move out for 6 months. They're going to have to use federal assistance while the house is fixed. Are there rehab programs that may solve the gap between insurance and the repairs? Because one of the things that's happening in the housing side, and I'm so glad you brought up insurance, is that if you bought your house 8 years ago, the value is much higher than where you bought it. But if you never adapted your insurance policy, you may have a policy that's lower than the cost to fix it. So we have these gaps. Is the VA available with any kind of a rehab program to solve that gap so we can keep these veterans in their homes?
So our rehab program does not necessarily work like the 203K program at FHA. That an FHA type rehab program is available, right, to certain borrowers.
For VA, so a VA plan can use an FHA program?
Not, and I'm saying if you are looking
general.
Yes, in general terms, right? So VA does have a rehab program Now, whether or not it is, you can utilize that program, it is based upon the cost of what it would cost to rehab the actual home, right? We'll have to appraise out once you are utilizing those funds for that program. So it functions a little bit differently than the FHA 203K. I only brought FHA 203K it's literally the only program out there from a federal level that is
Great.
that you can't compare to. We're constantly compared to that. I would say that you run the gap of the cash out program versus that energy efficient program where you can make repairs up to $6,000 without having an appraisal. Anything above that $6,000 mark, you would have to, and it's got to appraise out, right? So there are options. It's just I would contact VA and have us walk you through it. That are a lot smarter than me. How about that?
That's why we have that servicer button on the website. Call, get your request in for help. Service now, ask. Because obviously you shouldn't ask me because I'm trying to stack FHA and VA programs together. I thought that was available and I'm like, didn't know that, but I got excited too soon. All right. So let's dive over on insurance for a second because there is a pretty awful but realistic segue to what's changed in compensation when it comes to veterans hiring a real estate professional to represent them when they're buying. And it's the cost factor. So we know that if you're buying real estate now, depending on where you're located, the insurance numbers are crazy and they're expected to continue skyrocketing simply because we desperately need some reform in the insurance side. And I don't know what the answer is, but the way it's working right now is about to upend a whole lot of people's home ownership pathways. But if somebody's having to exhaust their income to pay for insurance and property taxes have gone up because values have gone up, now if they also want to hire an agent, but their cash position has been depleted, is the VA working on a long-term solution to options for a veteran who wants to hire a professional to represent them in real estate, but they do not have lots of liquid cash available for all the reasons?
So let me answer your question in two parts. There's the insurance issue, right, that we know we have. And I have been saying this for about the past 2 years. And one of the things that I'm very passionate about is trying to solve this from a federal level with the help of my agency friends. And we have had discussions on what does insurance look like from a home affordability standpoint? And what are the things that we can do? What authorities can we ask Congress for to help in that arena? Right now, there aren't a lot of great solutions. There's only problems. We've got to figure out a way to help solve the problem. And the problem is what happens, and you just laid it out very succinctly. It's not just about the real estate. It's not just about realtors or real estate agents and helping them get borrowers in the right homes. It's also just helping borrowers get into homes because home affordability is continuing to skyrocket. And as it skyrockets, those individuals that we really need buying homes are getting priced out of the market. And those are first-time home buyers and a very competitive segment of the market that we need to continue to buy homes. And from a VA perspective, we run the gamut. If you're a veteran, we don't say that, okay, if you're a veteran and only if you can afford this price range of house, then only you can qualify for VA loans. No, we want everyone to be able to, if they can be eligible for the program and they can, and it makes sense for them financially to be able to afford a home and to help them get into one.
Want them to re-up. If you take away their benefits, they might not re-up. And we desperately need experienced veterans and experienced active duty military and to help shepherd the next generation along. But I got to point one thing out to you there that you almost said, and I think you were going to, but you forgot. And it's not just we want to get people in their houses. I think you and I have this similar belief that you have to help keep people in their houses. And when you're in this affordability crisis, if a first-time veteran stretches to get in the house, man, that first insurance increase that does this to them, it could throw them from I can make it to I can't hit this anymore. And that's what frightens me the most is that somebody, man, they chased that American dream, they got the house, and then poof, a year later, their premium went so high because maybe they're in a coastal market. In North Carolina's coastal markets, we have a lot of veterans because we have Camp Lejeune sitting out there in Onslow County as a coastal market. Their insurance rates keep playing the really big stretch game. So hopefully your little work group will talk about how we keep people in their houses. I'm sure that's one of your conversations.
That is actually number 2. Remember, I said, let's segment this into 2 issues. Like one is, how do we get people into homes? The second one is, how do we keep them into homes?
Oh, so I was jumping the gun, obviously.
It's okay. You're always smarter than I am. You know that, Leigh. Yeah, it is one of the biggest issues and concerns too, is it's not only keeping them into homes, it's what happens when they aren't able to maintain that home, right? What happens to a community? What happens to the fabric of that community? If you've got a ton of homeowners that were effectively making their mortgage and everyone was paying, and then you got a subdivision that is in an area where, let's say, they've lost the ability to make overtime. Let's say they work for a plant that closes. What happens to that foundational issue of that community itself? Not just from a, can you utilize the VA benefit, but it's also, we don't want for those communities to not have options to keep people into homes that should be in homes. And how do we solve for that? Because if you're sitting there, like you said, let's say you're sitting there and to no fault of your own, now your taxes and your insurance have now increased your monthly payment by 35% every month. And then let's say that you all work for the same factory or facility that's nearby, and now they've cut overtime. So now you've hit 35% in increase, and now you are not making additional income that's coming in. What do you do? And so that's how we need to be thinking as real estate individuals, is how do we solve for that? It's not just about taxes. It's not just about insurance. It's about home affordability, and home affordability, not just about getting people into homes now, but what allows them to stay there.
Okay, so I had to ask one more question on this space that just occurred to me, and then we can talk about the structural changes. In Florida, was it 3 years ago in Miami, that condo building went down because of poor construction, some huge structural errors, and then in the natural desire to protect other people, there was an overcorrection that is now crashing the condo market in so many areas because the buildings can't afford to retrofit it to fit the new rules. Is the VA involved in the conversations about how we strike a balance between structural integrity and not destroying the entire condo market? Are you involved in those conversations at all?
Only peripherally, and here's why. It's because the way that we have done our condo approvals have been different, and we changed before that happened, and making sure that what could have happened before, and let's say you're buying in a condo, and let's say 20 years ago you got a condo. We didn't go back and check to make sure that condo still met those criteria. It was just sitting in the approval category. What we did is that we went back through and said, okay, which of those condos in those particular areas are still meeting the qualifications needed? We also have a condo waiver process that a veteran can submit. Let's say that there's an overly zealous or overly cumbersome criteria that is preventing them from buying in a certain market. We actually have a waiver process where the veteran can go through that process, through their realtor, through their lender, to a regional office, and then comes up to our central office. All this is all tracked, monitored, So we're not taking 30 days to issue approvals or anything like that, but we're looking at those individual cases to see whether or not what the veteran wants to be waived can be waived. And so we're trying to be a help to them and not allow them to not buy in the place they want to buy just because of some law or rule that we put into place or policy that we put into place 20 years ago. So we're really trying to be helpful with that.
What you're saying is, as opposed to common parlance, there's actually more flexibility and freedom with the VA loan than with a lot of the other loan types that are out there, because you're giving the veteran a little more of the decision-making power back.
We're trying. Yeah, it is not 100% infallible, right? It's not, but
An agency.
It's certainly helped. We have cut down on the number of, I will say this, we've cut down considerably on the number of complaints that we have in condo markets on veterans being able to access the condos that they want to access. It has cut down on those number of complaints. And remember, we track those through those tickets that we now have online. So we're getting there. We're not 100% there, but we're trying to do some things that are outside the box to help as much as we can.
To circle back to the last conversation, I don't think anybody expects 100%, but they just want their situation looked at. And I think as long as an individual situation can be considered, people give a whole lot of leniency if you gave them a hearing and then you solve as many as you can. I'm so glad to know that little piece, because I know my agents who are working, especially in the Florida market, may not have known that little tidbit. So now they can let their veterans have a different space in the conversation and reach out to y'all if they have questions or concerns. That's good stuff. Okay.
We try.
Let's talk about the biggie. The biggie, of course, being that in light of the rules changes around structural real estate and how the multiple listing services that realtors use as a marketplace for data and for properties have now taken out the cooperative compensation piece. I know that in our last episode, we talked about what the VA was going to do to create or get to have done by the legislative body to create some more flexibility for borrowers so they can choose to pay their agent, or the agent could be compensated traditionally through the listing agent on behalf of the seller. Where are we right now with compensation if a veteran says, I want to hire an agent to represent me when I buy? What options does that veteran currently have, and how many are proposed, temporary and permanent?
So we didn't want to get too far ahead of what's going to happen next, right? We wanted to see where the dust settles. So
we don't know what's happening next.
Exactly. So what we immediately did, as soon as immediately as we can move, is we issued a policy saying that, basically overturning our longstanding policy that veterans using the VA home loan benefit should be competitive in the marketplace. They can pay buyer broker fees. And we issued that pretty much right after we had the show, right? I mean, so we talked about it the last time I was on here. Pretty soon right after that, we issued that clarification. That seemed to have helped. Did it go all the way to where we wanted to? No. Are there other things at play and other things that we want to do? Yes. But we need to see how things are going to play out here before we go the legal route, like the regulatory or the statute route. We're at this wait and see, getting all the data and all that information from our realtors, from our lenders, so that we would be ready once we see where the dust settles of the direction we need to go.
And it's probably just as well that it didn't go as far as I personally wanted, because I was all ready for statutory changes, fix it. But knowing where we are right now, we're still waiting on the settlement to be approved. And we know there's other lawsuits and other inquiries out there rumbling around about real estate. So the final rules might need to look different based on any other negotiated changes to how things work. But on behalf of everybody in real estate, we were all dancing joyfully to find out that there had been some temporary rule changes to allow our veterans to have the options. That's all any of us want, is for our veterans to have good benefits that give them options so they can decide what makes sense for them.
there are two things that I definitely want to highlight too while we're in this space. And that is one of the things I teased you last time that we spoke, that we got finished and we've had really good feedback on. And that's that we put out our real estate professionals toolkit on our website. Please, if you haven't, Leigh, had a chance, because you've had a lot on you here lately, because this happened literally right before the disaster occurred. But please go on, tell us what you think about it. But we now have a dedicated real estate professionals webpage on our website. In that, it provides digital PDFs that you can actually use for the VA home loan program that you can take and go to open houses and those kind of things with. We're going to continue to improve this as we get feedback from you, but we wanted to really understand what real estate professionals needed, not just through their lender, but also that you needed directly so that you could continue to promote the program and about the program. So it has statistics, it has all of those type of things that we've always talked about on that real estate professional website. So we'll provide that link. Again, don't try to memorize it or anything like that, but we'll provide that link after the show. There's also a training page for a training webpage, for lenders, servicers, appraisers, and real estate professionals. That's through the LGY Hub. So we now have a training team that continues to update that and work on more information so you can have it readily available at your fingertips, because we want you to help us get the word out. And the more information that we have out there, the better off we'll all be. So I wanted to thank you for letting me plug that, but I wanted to let you know that it's out there and live.
Okay, so here's what I'm dying to know. We currently have 1,520,000-ish realtors. That's not including the licensees that are not part of the trade association. So it's probably around 3 million with a real estate license roaming around out there. How many have accessed that new toolkit since you rolled it out? Do you have any idea how many clicks have been on it?
Let me try to find that information out for you.
I would totally love to know if it's 5,000 of the biggest super nerds who do VA, or if it's 50,000 because people are interested in it. And that's also going to allow me to challenge my viewers and listeners to go check it out, especially those of y'all that don't do VA on the regular, and you should be learning more about the program, because the biggest hurdle I see in real estate is that we have veterans out there who either don't know this benefit exists, or they think that because they used it once 20 years ago, it's gone. And if they encounter a real estate professional who does not have some knowledge of VA, that veteran might not have access to the program that would be best for them. So you've got to get educated on that. And it's not for you, it's for those you serve, and especially the ones who served us. So it's super important to be educated. And I got to challenge those numbers to go up, because something tells me they're pretty low.
Something tells me that it's probably going to be lower than those that go to your website to get.
Oh, y'all better go check it out. John just challenged all y'all who watch and listen to this that you at least better be the ones that go check it out. But in specific, if you've got a military installation around you, come on, man. Good resources available. So have you seen any challenges on the VA side since the rules changes went into effect in August? Or are you seeing veterans have a problem getting agents, or is everybody figuring out a way to move forward in the new version of real estate?
I would say that it would be the same as what I thought I would see. And that's that a vast majority of real estate professionals do it the right way. But there are some a few that are really doing things the wrong way.
I screenshot them in my phone when I find them on social media. Then I use them in presentations to say, this is what not to do.
Irony in all of that is, if you think you can screenshot them, I don't know who else you think can also screenshot, but I'm just saying.
Anybody?
Anyone. Like, people know you're out there. You certainly are. I'll just put it, there's a right way to do it. We hope that you're doing it the right way. We certainly understand the reason why you would want to do it the right way and need to do it the right way. And we think that it is a viable and needed fee to give credence to. But we also understand that for those of you that are doing things outside of closing and putting things on credit cards and charging 8%, we also know that you're being seen.
You are a blight on humanity. That's what you were trying to say. You are a scourge if you are breaking rules and hurting veterans in the process, and not just veterans, but any homeowner. We can call them a scourge. I can, because I'm not part of the government, John. You probably can't say that, but I can. But you're Tennessee, so you could say they're acting like Florida. We can always use University of Florida. They're acting like Gators. You want to say that? You could say that. So I went to Florida State, so I have to talk smack about the Gators. That's so much of my world. So
Hey, we've done well lately.
we haven't. Florida State's having the worst year ever. My son's at NC State, so I'm just pulling for the Wolfpack now because that's where my money goes. So I may as well pull where my kid goes.
I know. Remember last time we talked, I think that was right before the game, that we had.
You won, but you know what? The announcers mentioned how good the band is, and my son's in the band, and that's all I cared about. So they noticed NC State's marching band.
The band was excellent from NC State. Just have to say.
John, is there anything else our viewers and listeners should be aware of? Any little hot spots that they should know besides the toolkit, which I know they're all going to go download right away and start getting more educated on programs that are available? Is there anything else we should share before we let you off the hook again?
I will tell you, what's not me if I don't give you some stats. So I got to give you a few stats here. We did almost 300,000 purchases last year.
Calendar year? The 2023 calendar year?
Well, no, FY24.
Okay.
So almost 300,000 purchases. Our average time to close averaged around 30 days, 31 days. Our average credit score is around 717. Average debt ratio is around 44%. Here's a stat that is really cool for you. Did you know over 19% of our veterans made a down payment, even though they're not required to?
So was that because of the affordability crisis, or because they wanted to bring down their loan to value?
They are very financially conscious, most of your veterans out there, and they put themselves in a position where they can put money down. And when they do, again, 19% of the time they are. Almost 59% of veterans obtaining a VA loan were exempt from paying the funding. So they didn't even have to pay a funding fee.
Fantastic.
So think about that for a change. 19% are putting money down. 59% aren't paying a fee at all. So they're not paying mortgage insurance. They're not paying a funding fee. And they're paying one of the lowest rates out there. I'm not sure there's any other program like it out there if those three factors are at play.
And in closing in 30 days, because not every conventional program can close in that time frame. So that's another little bright spot for you there.
And 6.8 business days in appraisal delivery from the time to order to the time the appraisal was delivered. Now,
Certified residential appraiser delivery, right? Because we love our certified appraisers.
that most of our panel are certified.
I don't know any VA appraisers that would want me to make sure that we take note that we love our certified residential appraisers. But I won't call any names, but we do, because the VA does support the appraiser community, because we know that laying eyes on a property is the best way to protect the investment of the VA and of the veteran. So I love that about your program.
How about one more stat for you?
Give me one more.
91% of our VA appraisals met or exceeded the sales price.
Oh, yay. So that means the agents were doing a good job, veterans got a good deal, and the appraisers were finding the value.
And if you had one more time for one more, we processed 3,000 ROVs, reconsideration of values, and over that, 45% of them resulted in an increase of value over 3%.
So do your stats show why the request for the ROVs came in? And for those of y'all that don't know the language, that's if you don't like the appraisal, you can request a review of it. And so that's an ROV. So why were they requesting, John? Was it on valuation or anything else?
They can request for any reason, to be honest with you. We do keep those stats. I don't have those stats readily available for you on why, but for any reason that a veteran or a lender thinks or a realtor thinks that, now I've even seen it, to be honest with you, and I don't know why this is, but sometimes realtors just want to be right. And even though it'll meet or exceed the sales price, then they still want a reconsideration of value. And lenders are like, no, I can't answer that.
That's your mouth writing checks your butt can't cash. That's what my granddaddy would have said. That's the tacky part of the episode that probably makes the VA staff want to roll their eyes a little bit. But there are realtors out there that do make promises. And you have to be thoughtful when you're representing somebody, veteran or anybody, not to say the number should be X. You're not a licensed certified appraiser. You're supposed to pull a range of value, and then you don't continue fighting when the lender is satisfied with the professional opinion of value unless you see something that's an obvious flaw. And I had to toss that in there because there are people out there that are so determined to be right, they will send everybody else down the river just to defend an opinion they gave they should not have been giving in the first place. The scourge.
There's also an old saying that says a bird in hand.
Who in the bush? Do they still teach those things anymore? Because I don't know they teach those in the schoolhouses, and the grandmas have other things to say now. Okay, so then if you're a nerd, then the next time we have a chance to update on the VA, remember, I want the narrative behind the nerd numbers. And so you tell me the whys on these things, and then we'll have the data and the story, and we can continue the work that you guys are doing so well, which is helping our veterans receive a wonderful benefit in return for the service that they've given so dutifully to this great country. John, I appreciate you coming on the show again and giving us some more insights from the VA, and especially giving us some resources so that our realtor community out there can do an even better job and help with the homeownership rate. Let's keep doing good things.
Leigh, and thank you so much for everything you're doing right now. I know it cannot be difficult seeing what you're seeing. And I just want to tell you from a personal standpoint, really thank you for all of the hard work and all of the dedication and support that you've been giving the community. So thank you.
It's an honor to serve, and it's never just me. It's my whole team I've got shoppers and donors and drivers, and every time we get to give a hug to somebody that has been just had their world rocked to the core, you remember that there's a whole lot of things that are more important sometimes than what we do in our day-to-day professional lives. And sometimes it's okay to put the to-do list over here to the side for just a minute and do good things. So I'm very proud to be a part of a giant team that has emerged out of the shadows. And
thank you, giant team. How about that?
Giant team. That's a much better thing. So I appreciate it. And we won't stop serving because we're a few years away from the solutions in all of these affected areas. And I'm grateful that you're part of the conversations to continue bringing some ideas forward. And that's what we do in this great country. We don't have all the answers. We just keep finding some more.
If there's ever anything I can do, let me know.
I sure will. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for what you do for veterans. And friends, say something nice about the VA in the comments. And most importantly, check out the show notes for this episode for all of your information links so that you can go grab any information that will help your clients, and also that service now button. If you do run into some veteran who has had issues, please encourage them to reach out and get answers, because there is help available. All you have to do is ask. So we appreciate you. Y'all, the other episodes about the VA are over here linked. Make sure you get yourself fully educated so we can serve. And we'll see you next time.
As always, I'm so super thrilled that you joined in for more crazy shit. And if you're a realtor, investor, inspector, lender, or just a regular human being who happens to have an unbelievable story that you need to tell the world about, or frankly, you just need to one-up the story you just heard, then make sure to DM me on Instagram at Leigh Thomas Brown, or tweet me at Leigh Brown, or frankly, any social network where you hang out. I'm there. And if you had some fun, then you totally want to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes.